Raw books or slabs? Which are better? We'll talk about that on this video from Bronzeville Comics. Hey there, comic book community. This is Jim from Bronzeville Comics coming to you with another video. And I'd just like to thank everyone who tunes into these videos for all their support. If you like what you see, click the subscribe button, hit the like button, and leave a comment. Also, you can follow me on social media on Instagram at Bronzeville_comics and also on Whatnot at Bronzeville_comics. Very soon, I plan to be doing my first Whatnot sale. And I'm looking forward to that because I need to diminish the piles of comic books that are currently surrounding me. Today, I want to talk about the idea of slabs versus raw books and which ones are better. Really, the answer is an individual decision. Some people swear by slabs. Some people will never touch a slab in their life. That's a personal decision. And I'm going to talk about my own decisions on what to do with books. So, just because I had them lying around. I have this raw copy. It's a fairly nice copy of Eternals #1. Oh, it does have a crease on the back, which keeps it from being high grade. And then I had bought, may have been a mistake, but I bought this slab of Eternals #1 in an 8.5 with white pages back in the spring. It's no longer worth what I paid for it. And so I kind of have, I'm kind of in both camps on the issue. When I was sorting through my own personal collection, I started that about 3 years ago. And I was alphabetizing and putting in numerical order all of my comic books for the first time since 1987. I had maybe 7 boxes of comic books, long boxes, at my dad's house of personal collection books I had put away in 1987. I've bought a lot of comic books since then, both new books and some old books. And that's well before I even started buying collections. And at a certain age, I got to the realization, like when I was younger, when I was in my 20s, I was reading the new books, and I was kind of keeping up to date with the new books, and then I was going back through my old books and reading them again. Well, there gets to be that tipping point in life where you realize, I'm never going to read these books again. So, A, do I really need to have them in my collection? And B, of the more expensive books, can I get them graded and slabbed? Well, I was going through, and I have runs of books. I was always been a run collector, and I'm a completist. So if I start a series, more often than not, I'm going to complete the series. So I was just sorting through books, and I found that I was getting pleasure in going through the runs and just looking at, the sequential covers of 20 or 40 or 60 or hundreds of issues of a certain book, and books that I fondly remember. Some books, I don't even remember buying them. I don't remember that they existed. So those are books that I can kind of do without in my collection and kind of thin the pack to get rid of them. And then I came to the realization, well, most of these books I will never read again. And especially high-grade books, I don't know if I want to. And I also realized that if I get them professionally graded by CGC or CBCS or whatever company that you may prefer. I use CGC only because they've proven to have the best return on investment. I find that if this book is not something that I want to keep anymore, there is someone that is willing to pay money. If it's a key book, pay money for it. And I said, okay, I'm willing to let this book go and have somebody pay me for it. And if it's worth considerably more being graded, then that works to my benefit. And I generally have been using, over the last year, I'm not yet turned a profit because, number one, I have dozens, well over 100 books out at CGC that I am waiting to come back. I just sent out another 25 books today, modern books. Many from the late 70s, but modern books. And goodness knows when I'll get those back. But fortunately, as opposed to, like, I started buying collections in May of last year. I think I had submitted 60 books between June and August of last year. I made the mistake because I really didn't have the connections, didn't know any better, didn't have my own knowledge of how to do it. I sent them to CCS to get cleaned and pressed. They're still at CCS from June. So there is a time investment and a money investment to get these books professionally graded. So that's something you have to keep in mind. If you find books and you want to turn them around and sell them and get some money back for them, if you want to do it quickly, getting them graded is not the way to do it. But in terms of my own enjoyment, I bought a copy on eBay. A seller had some books, some key books at really good deals. And I bought a copy of Batman 251, that classic Joker cover by Neil Adams. And I opened the book up, I put it on a table, and very carefully went through and started reading it. And it was a high-grade book, too. And I remembered reading that book as a 7-year-old kid. I remembered the story. And there's that experience of reading that book again. Almost like I just got it home from the candy store in 1973. And seeing the ads and seeing the newsprint. And there's something almost romantic about having, you know, the imperfection of the way books were printed in the 1970s. As opposed to how slick and glossy they are today. How, like, sometimes the color didn't quite match up. They didn't color within the lines all the time. But that experience of seeing the book and the ads and the letters pages, all of those things contribute to the experience of reading the book and are a reason why those books are a part of history. The same can be true, said of like an old magazine. With the ads in the magazine, it evokes a certain time, generally, in American history. But the other thing, too, is comics were printed on newsprint. And that wasn't created to last for decades, which some of these books have been around for. Now, I've sent a lot of books out to get graded, and some books that I want to resell for profit, and some I'm going to keep in my own personal collection. And there are certain strands of my collection that I like to have encapsulated in CGC cases. Specifically my 1972 collection, my keys from 1972. I've bought all the DC keys from 1972, and I think I've sent them all out to CGC at this point, at least one copy of each. And I have 9 of the 10 Marvel keys that I want from 1972. I'd like to, I wouldn't mind if this is going to be my comic room, just putting those 20 books on the wall. I think that would be kind of a nice little piece of comic book history that's a little bit unique. And again, I talked about in a previous video, we all have our different strands of collecting. I'm constantly finding new strands that I want to collect. So, to me, slabbing the book, even though it doesn't always make sense when you take a step back, because unlike encapsulated coins, stamps, trading cards, those only have 2 sides, right? If I had a 1952 Topps Mickey Mantle card and I had it graded and encapsulated, I have both sides of it. I have all the information the card is ever going to give me. Not so with a comic book. It's kind of ironic on CGC's part when they give a green label because a coupon or a Marvel value stamp was clipped and it says does not affect story. Well, just encapsulating it affects the story. You're never going to be able to read that story again from that book. But for big books, you can get facsimile editions. Most of the books you can find in digital form online. For instance, I had bought my daughter a copy of Detective Comics 359, the first appearance of Batgirl, and I bought the facsimile edition. So we have a display of the slabbed edition, and behind that is the facsimile edition. You ever want to read it, read what's in there, it's there. It's not exactly the same experience, but when you have stacks and stacks of comic books like I do, when are you ever going to read them again? Now, there's certain keepers that I haven't touched. For instance, my Golden Age collection, I'm trying to collect all the books from May of 1946. I don't have any of those slabbed. Those are all raw because those books are incredible to look through. But maybe at some point, I'll be like, you know what? I should get these slabbed because they're 76 years old and they're not going to last forever. And I need to do the best I can to preserve them. Some of my leading comics are in slabs, some aren't. I may move to slabbing them all or upgrading to slab copies of some of them. So, again, there's no one right answer. And there's no one right answer within a given collection. You know, obviously, the vast majority of books don't make sense to get slabbed because they're not worth anything. And unfortunately, I see people who have graded books that aren't worth the cost of them being graded. If it's a personal preference, if you just want, you know, every issue of a particular run because that's your all-time favorite thing, good for you. You know, and again, there's no criticizing any strand of collecting, any manner in which somebody wants to collect comic books. If they want to collect every issue number 1 that Marvel produced in the 1970s, that's perfectly acceptable. That sounds actually like a fun little project, you know. But that's an individual choice. And if they want to slab everything, if they want to slab some low-grade, non-key book because it was a childhood memory, that's perfectly acceptable. But in general, I prefer, number 1, to buy raw books. Because if I'm going to try to make a profit from them, it's easier to make a profit from taking a raw book, getting it cleaned and pressed, and slabbed, and making a profit there. It is more time-consuming, though. But I will buy slabbed books. A year ago, I had 2 slabs, and now I don't know how many I have. They're all over the place. I just got 3 in the other day. I got 11 in a couple of weeks ago. I got 3 in a trade at King Con. I bought one today that came in a bubble mailer and was cracked. I got a really good deal on a Black Panther #1, the 1970s Jack Kirby version. Person sent it in a bubble mailer. And I contacted the seller, haven't heard back yet. That will be a video in the future. I just picked up a collection today. There are slab-worthy books in there. But there are also books that Treasury editions can't be slabbed. They don't make slabs that big. So, you know, if you collect Treasury editions, you have to have some other way to store them and collect them. Same with magazines can be slabbed, but they're a little more difficult to preserve. So anyway, the moral of the story is there is no one right way to either slab or keep raw. Some people are like, I never want a slab book. I only want raw books. Good for you. Some people want certain books slabbed. They want 9.8s of, you know, an entire run of whatever it is. That's perfectly acceptable as well. Enjoy the hobby. That's what it's here for. It's here to enjoy. Now, there are people like myself. I buy collections and I try to sell the books because I do get enjoyment out of having the book, even for a limited period of time. I don't need to have the book forever. But it's like, oh, I've never seen this book in person before. Here it is. Boom. And then, you know, I'll think about selling it. Some stuff I'll keep. But it enables me to then take the profit of selling those books and buy the books that I want. As it is, I have another project coming up in terms of buying raw books, getting them slabbed, and then keeping a copy for yourself that I'll be working on. So let me know what you think in the comments. Do you prefer raw? Do you prefer slabbed? What kind of books do you get graded? What kind of graded books do you buy? Let me know. Do you never want anything graded? And it's all perfectly acceptable. And you know what? I enjoy hearing the stories, hearing people talk about how they collect. It might not be how I collect. That's fine. Or sometimes it's like, wow, that's a really cool idea. Like Joe from Anachronic Comics. He did a video. He was collecting all the comic books that came out with a cover date of his birth month. That's incredible. That is a fun collection. It's a limited collection, but it's diversified because you have all different genres. And it's something that I might do in the future. So anyway, leave the comments there. Check out a couple of our other videos that came out recently. I am anticipating to do a live unboxing in the next couple of nights, depending on how the mail works. I do have some books coming back from CGC, some pretty cool books. Only 3 in this submission. And until next time, this is Jim saying, enjoy your comics.